Hey y'all, and welcome to the By Grace podcast, a space for young adults to find community and navigate the transitions of life together amidst the chaos. Here we will walk side by side as the body of Christ, embracing honesty, vulnerability, and real conversations through the lens of the gospel's transformative power. Join us as we pursue Christ, build community, and discover how His grace shapes every season of our lives. Hey guys, and welcome back to the By Grace podcast. I'm Brooklyn.
And I'm Kameron.
Sorry we have one mic today. Our other mic decided to stop working on us, but don't worry, next week we will have another one already ordered and on its way. We are trying to just continue to overcome all of the technological challenges that we are facing trying to get this podcast up and going. So thank you guys for bearing with us as we figure those things out. And we also just appreciate everyone's critiques that are just helping us continue to make this show better. We want to continue to just move forward and provide better and better content that's going to hopefully reach more people and just build this community. So anyways, to start off this episode, we're just really going to jump in and start just talking about sort of just the busyness of this past week. And then eventually we're going to get into Kameron's testimony. If you haven't watched episode 2, that's about my testimony. And now we're moving into episode 3, where Kameron's going to share with us how he came to know the Lord, how his life changed following Jesus, and what it looks like now. So I'm so excited. But babe, do you just want to give them an update from this past week? Trust, you can be real. You can be real.
From this past week. Anyways, we had so many things go on last week. So, first of all, the whole entire world of health insurance hit switching, trying to get us switched over onto our own health insurance, and then dealing with a medical bill that came in from a visit that we had to take Brooklyn to the ER for.
Y'all, I'm fine. It's just COVID. COVID's actually wild, so don't worry. I'm fine. And nobody gives you a manual to learning how to be an adult. Can I just put that out there? So y'all learn from our mistakes. We're going to walk y'all through it. Like we said, we're just going to, be vulnerable and be out there. So, but yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah, just learning how expensive that good old American healthcare is and all those things. Welcoming your parents to our humble abode. Tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow, actually. We're supposed to record on Tuesday, but it's Friday now. So, sorry, it's Thursday now. So, tomorrow.
You need the mic. You don't even know what you're talking about. I really was just waiting for you to be honest and just show that you really don't want to sit down and film this right now because you're tired.
Oh, I was thinking
yeah, this past week, let's just say this past week's been wild between, trying to rest on the weekend and just trying to get everything ready before you go back to school. And Monday, he starts architecture school for his 3rd year on Monday, so we're just getting you ready for that. But yeah, we've just been having fun coming up with content, and like you said, it's Thursday, and we were supposed to have this filmed beforehand, but we're doing everything we can to have it posted Friday morning and film it now, so I don't have to get up at 4 a.m. to edit it. So,
but yeah, you kind of just stole all that I was gonna update them on from this past week. So we're going to jump into my testimony. Yay, we love testimonies. So
wait, hold on. So sorry. I'm sorry. I really hate sharing this mic with you. I've just snatching it, but I completely forgot. I want to start off. I've been thinking about how we want to start off our podcast, how we want to kick into each episode, getting to the core of what we're going to talk about. And something I really just want to bring is talking about God's grace in every episode in some way. So Kameron, I have a question for you that you sort of asked me at the end of our last episode, and I thought about how to reword it and how can we present this to every person that we have come on this podcast. So are you ready for it?
Yeah.
Okay, so I want you to share with me one moment recently that you've experienced God's grace. So the most recent moment that you've experienced His grace. I won't snatch it from you this time.
You caught me off guard because we were supposed to start doing this at the end of the podcast. Hence why if you go back in the last episode, I asked you at the end. But hmm, recently, recently, that is a really good question. I had prepared for life general. I hadn't really been thinking of recently. Um, hmm, can I come back and answer that at the end?
I'll let you answer it at the end just because I really did throw you for a loop and I didn't give you any time to prepare. But I just thought about it and wanted to give us a good transition. But yeah, why don't you go ahead and walk us into your life before the Lord and we'll come back to his grace to wrap us up at the end.
So my life before the Lord. So I didn't really have like a life before the Lord, life after the Lord, like distinct, like draw the line moment. As like most Christians will have, they'll call it like a BC era, like a before Christ era. But I was around six or seven. Um, and I was always raised in a believing household. So we were raised in Christianity ever since I can remember. We've gone to church, we've done devotions, basically everything that my parents could do to like raise us in the way of Christ. But I guess I would say when I was seven, I like actually sat down and my mom like sat me down and like walked me through like what it meant for me to give my life to the Lord. Because she always made us make sure that like we fully knew what we were doing, so that it couldn't come back to be like, oh, well, like I didn't really know what I was doing at the time, or like I was just kind of following in this way of living because like that's what my parents did, or that's what my family did, that's what my friends did. But she wanted to make sure that we actually had like our own relationship with the Lord for ourselves, because ultimately that's what matters. Like you can't get into heaven, God can't save you off of your family or your friends' relationship. It has to be your own decision. So I was baptized around like 6, 7, 8, maybe. But would say I wasn't truly actively living for the Lord. I wasn't doing anything bad. It just I wasn't actively every single day like choosing to walk for the Lord. It was just kind of something that I always did. Um, Ever since I was a kid, I went to a Catholic. I would say Catholic school. It was Episcopalian, but it was out of a Catholic school. From all the way up until middle school. And so like being in like that type of environment, like everybody's a Christian. Every When I was in lower school, so like elementary, it was every Wednesday we would have church. Like stop school, it was like church lunch, and then like when I got to middle school, every single day it was church lunch. So being in that environment, it kind of didn't even like really force me to understand like why I believed what I believed. I was just like able to kind of like coast in religion just due to like my circumstances. But I would say the moment when things like really changed is like when I got to high school. And so it was in um, Little Rock, Arkansas, at Episcopal, small private school, up until eighth grade, ninth grade. Um, my parents actually said that the Lord called them to Bentonville, not to Bentonville. They said, "We're moving. We're moving to Northwest Arkansas. It's gonna be either Bentonville or Fayetteville." And I was like, "It's Fayetteville." The Razorbacks, they went to school in Fayetteville. We knew Fayetteville. We'd taken trips to Fayetteville. It was an exciting town. And so then we thought it was Fayetteville. And then when we came back from our second week of camp, our parents told us it was Bentonville. And so, yeah, we moved up to Bentonville, Arkansas for high school. And like going to a large public school from a small Christian school was really a wake up call. It was a wake up call and a, what is it called? Culture twist. I'm gonna say culture twist. Culture shock. That's what it was. Culture shock. Um, because at that point we were exposed to everything of the world where people weren't thinking like us. People weren't like, you say Jesus and they're like, isn't that guy like on Easter or whatever? They didn't share the same religion, so therefore they did not share the same moral values and way of life. So it was very easy to get swept up in all the things of the world, since I had just been like coasting along the social norm, but now the social norm changed, right? And so all throughout high school, I would say I really like more fell into those ways of sin, like all the drinking and drugs and sex and like anything that you could imagine in high school. I got swept up into. um Sorry, I just lost my train of thought. Yeah. um and even like what my identity was in. And so when we were moving up there, it was like a whole entire joke. Like we had like swam one summer when we were like 4 and 6 for like a recreational like summer league. And so like I saw that they had a swim team, and I like joked with Christopher. I was like, I'm gonna try out for this swim team. I'm gonna get back into swimming. He was supposed to do it with me. He didn't. And so I actually went to tryouts, did all the things, ended up loving it, ended up falling in love with swimming, and that's how I ended up swimming in high school. And so loved swimming, loved it as an outlet. Met so many good people there. But my sophomore year of high school, I met this sweet little girl, and I was like, you know what? I am going to do relationships right this time. Because previously in high school, I was not the best. I wasn't the best when it came to relationships. And so, like, previously, my relationships have been, like, more around, like, lust, which we thought was love at the time. I feel like most teens encountered with their first relationships in high school, it's more off of like physical attractions, and you're dealing with like your hormones, and then like lust, and then like sexual temptation, which like I confused as love, but it really wasn't. And then just like the pleasures of getting to receive something that really should have been saved for from sorry received from the Lord in His design, but we were taking out of context. Um, and so, but they were never really fruitful at the end of the day. They were never really rewarding at the end of the day. They were instant pleasures and they were fun and all the things, but at the end of the day, it still left me chasing for something that wasn't there. And so, like the guilt and the shame and the conviction that like would come afterwards, just due to the light of the Lord that I had let in. I had let in the Holy Spirit, so therefore I was going to be convicted. Um, and so, while swimming, met this sweet little girl. I prayed, and I was like, God, I am going to do this one with you, for you, and not in my own intentions, right? And so I prayed, and I prayed. I think that was the first relationship I ever like prayed for, and had a little small season of preparation for, understanding that it was from Him and not in anything that I could do. And so we ended up dating, and ended up being so wonderful. I was like, oh my gosh, this feels so much better than the raggedy relationships that I was, like involving myself in. It was so good. Um, but then like further down the road, right? It's one practice, right? I think it was like a winter like holiday practice. It was optional. I didn't even have to be there. And so like, but I went anyways. And so I walk in. Right, I'm a little bit late for practice. I spilled my coach's drink and had to go get her another one. And so one of my teammates like walks up to me and is like, "Hey, Caroline needs." Oh, dang! I said her name. One of my teammates walks up to me and is like, "Hey, so and so needs to talk to you. It's pretty bad." And I'm like, first of all, get out of my face. Like, she can come tell me that, like, if she needs to. Like, this is not 3-way with you. It's 3-way with God. And so, like, after practice, right? Grueling practice. I'm tired, right? We walk outside, have this conversation in the parking lot in front of everyone. I'm just like, we couldn't have, like, waited till we got in the car or something. No, no. And so, like, all I really remember from that conversation was just her saying, "You changed." And, like, at the time, I was like, okay, and I accepted it, and I was like, like high schoolers, you're like, yeah, I was feeling the same thing too. Like, it's mutual. It's like really not mutual. You just like don't want to say like you got broken up with. Um, yeah. So, anyways, but like after leaving that, like just those words rang in my head. It was like, you changed. No, I lie. She didn't actually say those words then. She said like things weren't working, and so like then like later I texted her and I was like, "Hey, like could you be more specific about it?" And she was like, "I don't know, you just changed." And I was like, "I didn't think I changed. Like me and myself, like I was still the same." So therefore, in my head, it like led me down the path of like, okay, I don't know what was wrong. I don't think I changed anything, and this still failed, right? Me and just doing nothing made this fail. So therefore, one, I'm a failure, and everything that I do is a failure. Because if I don't know what it is, then it could be anything. So therefore, my brain, being a very analytical brain, went through every single aspect of me and like my character, my traits, what I do, and like each one of those things told myself why it could be wrong. So like therefore I'm saying that like every single part of me is bad and telling myself that in some sort of hope to fix it. And so through that, I would say one of the only times like like if you like look in the Bible, like look in the Bible, and you'll see like many times when like the characters are like not the characters, the people, they're real. They're like on the ground, like crying out to God in like rage. Like rage, like how could you have I think there's many quotes and it's like, how have you forsaken me? Like I felt like how have you forsaken me because I was like the one relationship the first time that I decided, you know what, on my own accord, I am going to flee from the world and I'm going to turn towards righteousness. And in turning towards righteousness, in my mind, I was like, in turning towards righteousness, it has now hurt me. And I've now experienced more pain and more suffering than anything I felt in the world. I was like, that to me felt, what is it? It's not counterintuitive. It's like, I don't know, the opposite of what should have happened. I felt like in doing things God's way, it should be better. Am I right? Yeah, like Your Way is Better, that song by Forrest Frank.
I think this really reflects a lot of people's experience with Christianity. Like Christianity, we walk into a relationship with God and we walk into trying to live our lives out for Jesus, and we just think like, okay, things are going to be easier, they're going to be better. And God does work all things for good, but it doesn't necessarily mean things are going to be easy. Sometimes they're still going to be really hard when we're dealing with broken people in a broken world. And I think we lose track of that because we want to listen to all the great and good promises that God gives us. And then when something doesn't go our way or something doesn't, like you said, like in your own accord, you pursued this to glorify God, but it might have not been the plan that He had for you. And then ultimately, I can't wait till you get to the rest of the story to share what God did through this. But then when one thing doesn't go our way or the way that we expected it, we're so easy to just run to God, or run away from God, being like, no, like you forsake me, you didn't do this, you didn't like protect me in this, you didn't make this better, you didn't make this good. And we forget that we do live in a fallen world. And so while God is working at it and while he is good, we will have to still face sin and trial and seek him to overcome it and trust that his plans are perfect and his ways are better. And so any ways, I just think like what you experienced can speak to a lot of people in Christianity, or even the way people perceive Christianity from the outside, seeing just whether it's people from the outside seeing this as something that, oh, Christians think that they know everything and they have an easier life than we do. That's what they think. But then it's like Christians that are actually living it out go in thinking the same thing, just to come to the reality that it's still going to be difficult. Sorry, I definitely overtook my turn. Anyways, I'll let you continue.
Ches, I cannot pick up your phone call right now. We are recording, but I will get back to you. Um, yes, that is a very good point, though. And I think we were even talking to a couple of friends at our married small group about how we go into Christianity thinking that it's going to be like sunshine and rainbows and stuff, but like there are hardships just due to like the target on our back and like the sin nature of this world. Um, so that summer, actually, was the time to like, okay, so I messed up on the timeline of this. Oh yeah, because like we broke up and then like we like, I don't know, it was like one of those like weird in between transition seasons, but like I really started processing things like in like that summer, and like that summer was basically like hot girl summer vibe. Like we are outside, we're trying everything. And so like I was constantly like hanging out with friends, like not like bad friends, nothing wrong with hanging out with friends, with actually good friends, but just like anything to kind of like try and fill that hole that was now in my heart that I should have been filling with the love of Jesus Christ. And so it was like during the daytime, I'm out doing stuff. At nighttime, I'm on my knees, begging and pleading to God. During the daytime, I'm doing this. At nighttime, you know, feeling that God has forsaken me. And so that whole entire summer, just trying to fill my heart with anything. It was the first summer that I tried hard drugs. It was actually a really interesting time. I just was like on TED Ed on like YouTube, and I was like, "Your brain on shrooms," and then I was like, you know what? That's something that looks fun, that looks enjoyable. And then like 10 minutes later, like I had some shrooms, but it was just like the mentality of like quite literally like anything other than God. Because to me, like, okay, God didn't work. God caused me pain. I'm gonna go seek back the world. I had sex for the first time, and I would say that's why, like, I actually was prepared for the like by grace question, because I was like, just like not recently. I was like, that was the biggest moment I would say of God's grace, is because though I was out turning my back to the Lord and chasing things of this world, and then violated my own purity, before marriage, I still never felt any sort of loss or soul tie, or like something was missing from me or anything. It's just kind of like it's something that I even forget happened. Um, and I was like sharing my testimony with one of my friends one night. We were doing like a testimony night, and he was like, for the first time ever I saw it, he was like, I was like, does that feel weird? I was like, I feel like when I say that, like, that I'm just like disconnected from like Christianity or something, because like all I've been told is like, you have sex outside of marriage, like it's gonna feel like two pieces of paper being like ripped apart. You're gonna have a soul tie. You're gonna be thinking of them, but like I didn't. And he was like, did you ever consider that like that was God protecting you though? It was God, like he knew that you were doing something outside of his will, but like more out of ignorance, and that was him covering you and protecting you, and he didn't allow you to go through that. And I was like, so that's my answer to what's the moment. What was the question like?
The question was, what is a moment that you've experienced God's grace in your life?
Yes, I would say that, and it's very clear and it's very evident. Because I feel His grace was very much over that moment. Um, and then I entered college, and I was like, okay, I've tried all the things of this world, and they still didn't work either, right? So it's like I've tried Christianity, God forsaken me, I feel hurt, that didn't work. But equally, I tried the world, and the world didn't fill this hole either. And so I really had to dig and like go back in my life to see the moments when I felt the best and I was in the most right standing and I was happy and my life seemed to be in order, you know? And I was like, it was in the moments when I was in right community with God, surrounded by believers and actively walking in Christ with believers and truly acting out my faith instead of just sitting in my faith, instead of just floating in my faith. I was being an active believer. So this more transitions towards me being active in my faith. And so got on college campus and I was like, okay, this problem is either going to like magnify or it's going to quit. It's going to magnify when I get on this campus and, then every single sin of the world is not just only available, but it's quite literally like, it's like, taste, 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 you know? It's being given to me. It's being ushered towards me. I am weird if I don't partake in it, you know. So it's like, okay. So every single day on the way to class, I walked by the BCM. I think it's the Baptist College Ministry on the U of A campus, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna join. I'm gonna join. I'm gonna join. I'm gonna join. 1 year later, I still haven't joined. And every single excuse in my mind was like, okay, I'm too busy right now. I'm going to hit it after class. After class, okay, well, it's not a Wednesday, so I would have to wait a little bit longer and I need to like get to work or I need to get home, start doing my homework or whatever. And just like the amazing plot of the devil to just use like minor little things to like keep you from God's grace. And so, blessedly, the homie Moses transferred to the U of A my sophomore year of college, and he was like, "Hey, I'm going to this community group called Stumo. Do you want to come?" And I was like, "Yeah, I've been looking for a group." I was like, "Yes." And so we went, and it was more tailored to like frats and like new believers, so like we didn't end up going. And so then on Instagram, we saw the homie CJ Josie repping the C3. And so we were like, we know that guy. We are going to go. And so we went and we got plugged in. We got plugged into a small group. And that's when I really like started to see my life like start to turn. Not as extreme, but started to turn. And so where was I? Yes. That's when I first met my mentor Stockton. It was down in a small group and he was leading the small group, and me and Moses went up to him afterwards and was like, hey, would you like to mentor us? And like mentorship is something I'd always heard of, but I'd never really actively walked into. But I liked it a lot more walking into it with somebody that was a little bit closer to my age, because it kind of met me where I am instead of where I can be. Just for me, it helped me see somebody a little bit ahead of me, showing me the path that I need to walk on now that I wasn't walking on. Instead of being like, I've been where you are, it's like, I'm right here with you, you know? And so after that, joined another small group where I actually did meet Brooklyn. She was the lead of the girls, but I had been brought there by the lead of the guys, Carter Bishop. He sent me a text and was like, "Hey, I'm starting a small group," and I was like, "Okay, I'll go to support Carter." Little did I know the thing that I had been so hurt by God. I would say hurt by God. I thought I was hurt by God. I hurt myself. Um, would be healed by God in another season. Ended up actually being one of the best small groups that I ever joined, because it wasn't just like a small group that you came to on like Tuesdays or you came to on Wednesdays and then it's like, oh, okay, like pack that up and it's like, I'll see you next Tuesday. It was like, okay, we're here on Tuesday, but it's like, then we're hanging out Wednesday and like we're gonna go get lunch on Thursday and it's like, I'll see you guys for like 7-on-7 football on Saturday. And it truly became like a family, because I hate when that question is asked, like a job or something, and they're like, how can we be like your second family? And I'm like, you're not. You're my employer. Give me money. And so, like, Carter had asked, and he was like, how can we make this group more like a family? And I was like, hate that. But we truly did. Like, those, like, are my brothers now. Those are, like, my core people now. I married one. Um,
Which I would just attest to that too. Like that group really did become family, and such a sweet thing that I'm excited to talk about in a later episode. But just the fact that they're still family, like that was almost a year and a half ago that that group started, and to see that like not only did we get married and we're still walking together, but the majority of that core group, and just the blessing that God can deliver through community is so sweet. But I just wanted to mention that.
it was doing community in a more family style that ultimately had a larger impact than just being in a community group, because it was changing my whole entire day-to-day life to do life with others with the intention of bringing light to Christ's name. It was us all walking together in Christianity, all walking together in God's design, that truly helped keep me accountable in my ways, and which allowed me to even figure out like who I was and like finding my identity in Christ and re-centering, like what I found myself in, my self-worth, which was in Jesus and not a person, or not what the expectations of them should be on me, or what I even have to live up to for them, which helped me be a more whole person in and of myself, to then go find another person, to then find another relationship. I had to find myself first, which, I went on to like, and it's not like, oh, like, okay, like I figured this out, like I'm doing it for God, and like now like the next relationship's going to be perfect. It's like it was still a trial and error, but each one allowed me to figure out different things that maybe I was searching for in a wife, in a spouse, in the next mother of my children. Then I was just looking for the fleshly desires in my previous relationships, which allowed me to find a more whole person, which ultimately led me to you and the characteristics that I found in you just through our friendship, which ultimately brought me to where we are here today.
Well, thank you for sharing that with such vulnerability. And I think that there's so much that people can just relate to you. And I just sitting here hearing your testimony again, probably for like the fifth time since we have known each other. And for the first time in marriage, I think it is so amazing that our story, not only is the Bible living and breathing, but our story is living and breathing. And I even feel like looking back at our previous episode when I shared, and then thinking about everything you just shared now, how depending on who's listening or in the season that they're listening in, certain parts of your story are going to stand out more. Like as a wife, I'm now hearing things out of your story that I see differently than when I was a girlfriend. And so anyway, so I'm just hoping that as a whole, from what you shared, that there's going to be so many things that different people can take away from this and hear primarily how God moved through it. I think that's the best thing we can do with our stories is not be able to be, hey, look what I did, but get to just proclaim what you did. Proclaim, no, this is what God did in me and through me. And to just sum up everything about what you just shared, I would just say, I just feel like there are so many amazing nuggets that could be pulled out of your testimony from the things that you've experienced, the things that God has walked you through, the things that God has brought you to overcome. But just I'll quickly comment on the fact that you mentioned how there was a moment before you got plugged in with community at the U of A that there were so many excuses that were being made. And I think that we all experience that in different ways throughout our life, whether it's excuses for not going to this job, whether it's excuses for not apologizing to this person, or in my case, whether it's excuses for not starting this podcast sooner. There are so many ways that we are fleeing what the Lord's trying to do in our lives just due to our own stubbornness and pride. And so that'll bring us to a whole other episode on humility at another time. And then just to mention too, how walking in our Christian faith, we think that we are going to be allowed by God to go through this life without experiencing suffering, when in truth, God's word actually says the exact opposite, that you will go through suffering and you will go through trials, but that he will bring you through them. And just to hear how you walked away from him in one moment because it got really hard and things didn't go your way, then to come back to him and realize, no, your way is better. I just got caught up in the things that I want, control that I wanted to have, and I wanted the situation to go my way. What instead trusting God's way. And then to just comment to that, even Jesus walked through suffering, and the fact that he modeled that out for us, what it looks like to avoid temptation and what it looks like to live through the trials in this life. And if we're to be modeling after him, of course, we're going to face suffering too. So those are just two big things that stood out to me. And then ultimately the community aspect is just been a blessing in my life too. And I'm so excited to bring some of those few highlighted people that were mentioned onto this podcast in a later episode too, just so we can talk through about how that's not only affected our lives, but how it's affected their lives. And then to y'all, I can't wait for the next episode. Y'all don't want to miss it. We're going to be talking about Kameron and I's relationship and how it got started, how God's been in it from the very beginning. And I'm just going to give y'all a sweet little piece here is actually, we were friends for friends is a loose term, but we knew each other and were friends for 9 months before we ended up dating. And I think that just goes to show how God can put the right person in your life in the right timing, but their purpose in your life might be different throughout some different seasons, and that he is good and knows how that's going to work. And we just have to trust him and stay with him and seek him in why. So thanks, Cameron, for sharing. And we are so excited for y'all to join us next week.
But all right, y'all. That's a wrap. We'll see you in the next one.